There's plenty of people who have kept up to date on Skyrim's modding scene for like a decade now, if not more. But there are still a ton who are new to the modding scene, and when faced with a decade of mods, it can be rather overwhelming, especially since you see between 50 to 100 new Skyrim mods being added every day, and that's just on Nexus alone. And so, it's only natural that new modders will head over to Nexus, click on Skyrim Special Edition, sort by most downloaded, and start installing from there. Which is fair enough, but many of these mods are the most downloaded because they're old, not necessarily because they're the best in their category. So I want to go through the first page of the most downloaded mods and see if they're actually worth using in 2023 and beyond. To do this, I'll be installing each mod one by one on a blank canvas Skyrim. The only ones I've added are the ones that make the game more stable and ready to be modded. So, firstly we have Skyrim 22X, uploaded in 2016, offering new textures for cities, dungeons, clutter, armors, landscapes and much more. Nexus has a huge amount of texture overhauls, from Skyrim HD to Skyland All-in-One and Tamrielic textures. And with textures, it's all down to personal preference. But if you want things to be quick and simple, without choice paralysis, Skyrim 22X is a perfect choice. The mod still gets updated, and has a parallax version for those who want some depth to the textures, or lower res versions for those with weaker PCs. Can't go wrong. Then there's the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch, and to this I'll simply say, yep, download it. Bethesda games have a buggy reputation for a reason, and this patch removes a huge amount of those problems. Moving on, if there was one mod that most people couldn't play without, it's SkyUI. Skyrim's original UI for magic in your inventory is cumbersome, uninformative, and was designed with console in mind. But SkyUI corrects all those things, so you'll never see a modded Skyrim without it. Even mod lists with a fancy UI like this one use SkyUI as its base. There's not much else to say other than always use it. Next is Fall's New Idols, which allows other modders to add custom animations for characters. And I'll let you take a guess why it's among the most downloaded. Yep, it's the foundation for Skyrim's sauciest mods that would get me immediately banned if I showed you. Now, it's one of those things you'd probably ignore at first, but if you're modding Skyrim, then there's a very high chance you'll encounter a mod that requires Fall's New Idols to work. Now that may be because you're using one of those saucy mods, I'm not judging, but it could be for a wide range of things. New combat animations, walking animations, and so on. So it's worth downloading early on. SSE Engine Fixes. Yep, just download this. I won't get into the technicals because honestly it's beyond my understanding, but simply put, it'll make Skyrim crash less and be more stable under the weight of numerous mods at once. RaceMenu is another mod you'll see most people using, as it takes Skyrim's rather limited character creator and adds a slider for pretty much everything. Now this is a great mod that you should download, but it is worth knowing that it's not the most beginner-friendly mod out there. For starters, you have sliders that are clearly not meant to be messed with. But the problems lie with the sliders that are more subtle. As an easy example, you may adjust your character's height, or maybe their weight proportions for reasons. But this is not something that default Skyrim has in its character creator, so you could end up seeing jankiness when wearing armors and performing certain animations. So it's still worth downloading, but not going too crazy with it. Next is Address Library, and it's another that's too technical for me, but it should always be installed. Loads of other mods require it, and it's one of the few I had pre-installed before starting this video. The Static Mesh Improvement mod, which takes many of Skyrim's flat 2D objects and makes them 3D. The vast majority of these still use vanilla textures, and they can all be overlaid with other texture mods. It really helps make the world come to life and pop out at you, and with pretty much zero impact to performance, so another easy recommendation. Then there's XP32, which adjusts the character skeletons for better, and I quote, body and physics support. Again, I'll let you take a guess why it's among the most downloaded. Although, much like Fall's New Idols, there's a wide variety of mods that require this one, so at some point you're likely to download it. Next is CBBE, and I'm not too sure how much of this mod I can show. It basically replaces all the females with more detailed and higher polygon bodies, with options for slim bodies, vanilla bodies, and curvy bodies. It's certainly more detailed, but it can be a bit much for some people, or not enough. There's mods for all kind of body proportions. Typically people will do one of these three things: either stick to vanilla models and improve them with texture mods, use the CBBE mod, or use the UNP mod, which pretty much does the same thing, but aims to be a bit more natural looking. Each of these are supported by a plethora of armor mods, so yeah, it's up to you. Oh, and there are male body improvements to be found as well, coming from popular mods like Himbo and such. Going down a level, we have Ordinator, a massive perk overhaul adding a total of 469 new perks. Now I'd say this is the first mod on the list where it's really worth looking at other perk mods available and deciding which is best for you. As for the positives with Ordinator, it adds way more gameplay variety. So say you wanted to play a mage who specialises in cold spells only, in vanilla you could only get some damage buffs and better mana usage, whereas with this mod, there are perks specifically designed to improve cold effects, like freezing enemies in place and such. And the same level of complexity goes for all playstyles you can think of. But, as for what some people would call a negative, the fact there's so many perks means the balance can be thrown way off. Some perk combinations can turn you into an unstoppable killing machine, especially if you choose the option to earn more perk points as you level, which a lot of people do because, you only get 1 perk point per level, and with 469 perks that means it's pretty overwhelming. And so, other perk mods you'll see people recommend are Adamant and Valkyrie, so it's worth looking at those and seeing how they do things differently. Moving to JK's Skyrim, overhauling Skyrim's towns and cities with new buildings and stuff scattered about. So, the plus side is its incredibly high quality and makes Skyrim's locations look less barren. The downside is that this is where you'll really have to start learning about patches, which is something you'll have to do eventually. So because this mod changes so much, later down the line you may install another mod that overlaps with this one and causes problems. This could be as simple as 2 objects clipping into each other, or it could crash the game right from the get-go. If you look at the patches available on its Nexus page, you can see there's fixes for things like fishing, quest mods, and even stuff like Thunderchild, which improves shouts, which goes to show that quite often mods that you'd never expect to conflict will do just that. So as tempting as it is to install, just be aware of what you're getting into. And of course, weigh all your options, as other overhaul mods like Cities of the North and Spaghetti's Towns and Cities may be more to your liking. Now we come to a quality world map, and it's the first mod I'd say just don't use. It's not that it's a bad mod, it's been an all-reliable for many years, but it's pretty dated and there's better options. A clear map of Skyrim is a great alternative, offering even more details like clear roads, bridges and weathers. And if you want something a little different, Flat World Map Framework allows you to add more traditional old-timey maps, like these ones here. Next is Apocalypse, adding 155 new spells to the game. It's made by the same person who made Ordinator, and it's pretty much a repeat of what I said there. It's a high quality mod, adding a ton of new gameplay options, but there's others like Odin, Mysticism, Triumvirate, Arcanum, and so much more. Some of these mods lean into the power fantasy, some balance vanilla spells, and some focus on a specific mage archetype, and so on. So yeah, Apocalypse is great, but it's worth comparing what's available. Then we have landscape fixes for grass mods. And yeah, does what it says on the tin. At some point you'll probably want a mod overhauling the grass, as vanilla grass is rather dated, and this mod will prevent it from covering pathways and clipping into camps. So, alternate start, offering new starting locations and vague backgrounds for your character. It's a great mod that's still kept up to date, but there are reasons for and against using it. The first positive is an obvious one. It skips the vanilla start so you don't have to play the Haugen intro that so many of us have seen numerous times. You can be dropped into the map at a location of your choosing and create a backstory as to why you're there. And the main quest will naturally start when you stumble upon Haugen. The second positive is that it allows mods to load in before starting the game, as basically when you load into the world for the first time, each mod you've installed will begin their setup, and this can cause problems during the intro cart ride. But with alternate start, you can have everything load in beforehand in an isolated area to minimise problems, and then you can pick the vanilla start if you so wish. Now as to why you may not want to use this mod, if you're playing Skyrim for the first time, it could be a little confusing as to what you're meant to do. And secondly, there's numerous other alternate start mods available, like Realm of Lorkhan, adding a starting area to tweak your character with loot, new classes and curses. Skyrim Unbound Reborn, which lets you adjust your spells and choose whether or not you're the Dragonborn at all. And Optional Quick Start, which simply puts you at the end of the game's opening. So it is worth picking an alternate start mod, but again, look at your options. Relationship Dialogue Overhaul adds over 5,000 lines of dialogue to NPCs, As there's not a huge amount of voice actors for Skyrim, many voice lines from other characters are able to be mixed and matched, so everyone has more to say. It's great for immersion, although it is worth noting that it's an older mod and not been updated since 2018. So there's a higher chance of encountering issues, and finding patches to make it work with newer mods might be more difficult. Personally, I'd say it's still worth using, but just be cautious when adding anything that affects NPCs. Now there's Realistic Water 2, and this is another old reliable. Simply put, it makes the water look like water, and not like a pile of goop. There's many water options out there, but if you don't want to think about it too much, then you can't really go wrong with this one, or the simplicity of CMod. Bodyslide Outfit Studio. It's a separate tool used for customizing body shapes and outfits. It's useful when you have a custom body shape and want to make specific armor fit around it. It's something that I always have installed, but I've never actually used. If you use a body mod like CBBE I mentioned earlier, most armor mods will likely be compatible right from the get-go. So unless you're using a body with exaggerated features, it's likely you'll never interact with this tool. And finally, we end on a simple one. Enhanced blood textures. And yeah, use it. This mod has been available for as long as I can remember, and most people still use it to this day. Being a game with a lot of close-up combat, you'll be seeing a lot of blood, so this just makes it fit seamlessly into the world. And there we have it. And honestly, the vast majority of these mods have aged really well. Even those that aren't essential still hold up against newer mods. Not all of them are necessarily the best in their category, but that doesn't mean they should be disregarded as well. I could keep going page to page, but this video would go on forever, so I'll stop there. But hopefully it's given you a good idea of what to install, and I mean, if there's enough interested, I'll move on to page 2. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a like, as it helps this channel grow. And a big ol' thank you to my Patreon supporters, John Ratz, Ter Aura, Jaden Shaw, Janice, Jake Carlo, Dweezil P. Pants, Rook, Alec Bentley, Jack Ma and Christian Howell. With every contribution, big or small, it makes it so I can spend more time on this channel and create videos like this one, and so I appreciate it so much. And I also have a Ko-fi account if you want to give a little one-time donation, and thank you to Blissy and Durf who recently donated. Again, thank you so much. And farewell everyone.